Now for global business updates, Rotus Udiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. We kick off with Bitcoin. About 2:30 a.m. this morning, Bitcoin finally crossed $100,000. So far this year, Bitcoin is up 140%. Why? What was the trigger? Well, President-elect Trump has appointed Sam Atkins. He's a former commissioner at the Securities and Exchange Commission to actually lead it. Of course, go through the normal channels in order to get there. But he's going to be replacing Mr. Gensler, who Trump said he would fire if he was still in place. Gensler said, of course, he's going to step down January the 20th. So it looks like that was the trigger that pushed it forward. Also, Vladimir Putin was at an investment forum in Moscow, and he also was just giving some pro-Bitcoin or pro-crypto comments. So it looks like that's what's pushed it over there. I think it's at 101 or even 102 as we speak right now. We get to oil, and today is D-Day, of course, for OPEC Plus. They did they pushed that meeting from Sunday to Thursday. They are in a conundrum. What do they do about market share? Do they add more barrels to the market? You can see actually oil edging down just a bit. Brent crude and West Texas intermediates are both falling this early this morning. We spoke with an investor in Oklahoma City, Sam Jurens. Listen to what he said particularly about oil. I was asking him about deregulation and whether Trump's impact on stocks would mean that with him wanting to drill more, you should buy fossil fuel stocks or buy banking stocks. Here's what he said about oil specifically.
And on the energy side, oil hasn't really gone anywhere. I think you could argue prices would move lower. America is already the #1 oil producer in the world right now. And that's at very low rig counts relative to history as well. And so if we do increase rig count and more production from that standpoint, you could have a pretty big argument for lower oil prices as well, which, it depends company by company which ones may benefit from that.
So moving on to Asian stocks, the only index that's positive this morning is the Nikkei 225 in Japan. We continue to see weakness in China, in Hong Kong, and particularly in Korea, which is where the focus has been. So Korea and France, we're going to be getting to the political upheaval there. So the President Yul, as you already know, he's facing impeachment charges now. We understand that the opposition party wants a vote on the 7th, which I think is the same day Ghana is voting for a president, and they need 8 people, because of how Parliament is set up, 2/3 majority. They need 8 people eight parliamentarians from the ruling party to join them. The ruling party wants to kick out Yul. They're saying that he should step down, at least from the party itself, but they say they will not support the impeachment proceedings. But pressure is building on him. What about the economic picture for Korea? If we take a look at that, basically the Korean won is the worst performing currency in Asia right now, down about 8% against the US dollar. We've seen a number of fund flows coming out of Korea, but it's not just because of this, it's also because of a number of other factors with respect to the equity markets and also the belief that Korea has been a bit behind in terms of catching up with other Asian players for artificial intelligence. So those are some of the things that are basically the headwinds that are facing the Korea right now. But the central bank governor did say that, look, this is a one-off and this is short-lived. So take a listen to Ri Chang-yong, who is the governor of the Bank of Korea.
It's a relief that the impact of the market was short-lived, while it is still true that it's hard to predict the political dynamics. But I believe that the economic dynamics in Korea can be separated from the political dynamics, given our strong market fundamentals and also the matured democracy.
All right, we get to France. It's been Korea and France. French bond yields continue to rise. I heard Dr. Abati talking about the cost of borrowing. That is increasing now because of the spread between French bonds and Germany. By the way, because of this no confidence vote, Germany, I think, is going to face their own. Olaf Scholz is going to face his no confidence vote pretty soon as well. So Europe is just in a tizzy right now. But basically, Emmanuel Macron is going to be speaking at about 8 o'clock this evening. His search for a new prime minister begins. Michel Barnier Barnier, Brexit negotiator, out of a job now. And the main issue now is the 2025 budget. There was, the doomed budget that caused a lot of these issues, with about 60 billion euros in tax increases and also in spending cuts to try to reduce that 6.1% deficit to GDP to about 5%. The issue now is what happens. France has no budget. I thought it was pretty funny that Macron and President Tinubu were together in Paris. Nigeria has already, Senate has passed our medium-term expenditure framework for 2025 through 2027. We're set. France has no budget. So they're going to have to, here there's a special law that allows them to extend some provisions from the 2024 budget into early 2025. The issue, though, is that there are inflation-linked tax brackets. Essentially, there's some spending measures and also some, measures for citizens that are supposed to alleviate cost pressures. So about 18 million, maybe 19 up to 20 million French citizens will face higher taxes in the new year because the provisions of the 2024 budget are based on inflation metrics from 12 months ago. And inflation, as you know, has come down in much of the Eurozone, including in France. So it's a pretty dicey situation for the country right now, and we'll hear what Emmanuel Macron has to say later on. To the U.S., we're getting non-farm payrolls tomorrow. We're supposed to be talking about that. Jerome Powell was also talking about a number of things at the New York Times Deal Book Summit. But unfortunately, the main story coming out of the U.S. is the assassination of a CEO of United Healthcare. Mr. I think it's Ben Thompson. Brian Thompson, excuse me. They had this is the biggest insurer in the United States. It's part of a United Healthcare group of companies. They had an investor day in New York the day before yesterday, and he was walking into his hotel when he was gunned down by an assailant. There's a CCTV video of that. We've avoided the more graphic parts of the CCTV. All you just see is what is circulating, which is the gunman. You should have the CCTV video in front of you now. The gunman approaching him from behind. They're trying to figure out what's going on. There's a $10,000 reward for the gunman. I think what people are saying is possibly because of some issues with healthcare costs. United Healthcare has faced some protests in the past from rising healthcare coverage. United States has one of the most expensive healthcare in the developed world. So, for now, that's just speculation. No one really knows why this happened, but it was a targeted attack, and folks are now looking for that gunman. To round off, Kenya has actually reintroduced some tax measures from the initial finance bill that caused protests. So they're going to be increasing import tax for imports coming in between 1.5 to 2%. They're also going to be doing a minimum top-up tax for multinationals and taxing foreign firms that use their digital marketplace. So we'll see what the public has to say about that. And then for Nigeria, we had a treasury bill auction yesterday, the 364-day bill, coming down from 23.5%. The true yield is still under 30%, still in double digits, as a result, of course, of what you've seen with the MPC raising interest rates. So we still have a high yield environment for money market securities in Nigeria. That's our update.
So pretty much what is happening in France is just like what is happening in Kenya. It led to protests in Kenya last year. In the case of France, you have a Marine Le Pen that is saying, hey, I'm going to go with the people. The deficit will hurt us so badly. Most of the social spending that has been cut will hurt us so badly, and I don't want this to happen to the people. As we speak today, the deficit is so high that it is 6.1% of GDP. Where is France going to get the oomph to be able to wriggle things out? And the interesting part of all of this is, if they don't pass this budget by the 28th of December, then they have to go through emergency spending till next year. So it even exacerbates the problem. And it's pretty much difficult for Macron to be able to get a new prime minister. Who is he going to put in there? You saw all of the scam. In fact, when Michel Barnier came in, he was supposed to be the common sense candidate because the 31-year-old Attal guy had left, after the elections and everything had gone wrong. So he was supposed to be the balancer because he was supposed to be the cool head in the room before he did what he finally did do. And I'm quite surprised because he was chummy at some point with Marine Le Pen, and all of this happened. So how France is going to fix their economic situation the next year, it's interesting. Kenya, Ruto, smart guy. He has consolidated now, kicked out Gachagua, put in Kidinki, has everybody fall in line. Then what does he do? He Nicodemously puts in an import tax again. this guy's an interesting guy. We'll see how this pans out. I do not see a lot of pushback from the people, but at least this time, even if they push back, he's got the deputy president on his side. He's got most people on his side. He's been able to rally the troops on the lawmakers, give them what they want. So I do not see, you see, one way or the other, he's still going to be able to pass what, because really, and in all fairness to him, there is no way he's going to pay for that deficit. That's just it. It's the sad reality. There's no way he's going to wriggle his way out of it. Just like is happening in France too.
Yeah. His fiscal deficit is at 4.2% of gross domestic product from an initial 3.3%. The truth is that last year's the pushing back and the protest that happened that killed about 61 people in Kenya, where he had to even sack his entire cabinet, meant that he still had to grapple with the issue of debt on his hands. And what the proposals from the finance bill at the time would have done would have been able to raise revenue of about $2.7 billion. So he lost that. But the truth is, there's no way that they wouldn't have to introduce some form of tax because they need money. They need to make, Kenya needs the money. If not, their debt profile would be too large to manage. And of course, the IMF is putting a lot of pressure on them as well. What they did say, though, because earlier in August, there were speculations already that some of the provisions of the finance bill that had to be taken away would be reintroduced, was that they would learn lessons from the last time, which is ensure that they had wider participation. Some of the very controversial aspects of that finance bill would not be introduced, or perhaps maybe introduced in a very clever manner. We talked about housing taxes, increasing housing taxes, taxes on diaper, taxes on some certain food, which caused an uproar. So what he would then do would be intelligently ensure that there's wider participation and that some of the most controversial parts of that bill would be addressed. I say this because maybe this is a lesson for us in Nigeria as well to learn, particularly because we are also grappling with a kickback following the introduction of the new tax bill. And what we're saying is that rather than throwing away the baby with the bathwater, let's pick out the things that people don't agree with and see if we can rework it to ensure that we're able to pass the tax bill. Also, to ensure that there's also wider consultation. We see it was a challenge in Kenya. It's now been seen as a big challenge in Nigeria, and why a lot of people, well, especially the northern governors, are kicking against it. But tax is on the table around the world. But I don't think Kenya can do away without increasing taxes. He will just have to do it in a very clever way and in a way that includes as many people as possible so they don't feel like they're marginalized.
Okay, the country I want to talk about is South Korea, but let me start with France. Now, one of the issues here is that France has a deadline of December 21 to come up with a budget. What is likely to happen with the political chaos that has engulfed that country is that perhaps they will pass an emergency budget, maybe extend the 2024 budget until they are able to decide on 2025 budget. Second is the position of Marine Le Pen. Marine Le Pen has made it very clear that whoever is going to be the next premier of France, if that person does not do business with the National Rally Party, right wing, or the National Popular Front, far left, that person will not survive. So France is facing, a future of chaos, of political turmoil. And as I said earlier, when Adefemi Akinsanya was here, it was a self-inflicted blow, injury, by Macron himself. Maybe he shouldn't have called that snap election. Now the National Popular Front and the National Rally are both saying they want another snap election, which they hope will give them an advantage. After all, there is strength in numbers. Democracy is about numbers in South Korea. South Korea has a parliament of 300 seats. 192 of those seats belong to the opposition parties, the DPK, and the other smaller opposition parties. Now, 190 of those persons have now voted yesterday to impeach President Yoon. After the vote, it will go to the Constitutional Court. If the Constitutional Court ratifies it, then of course they will move from impeachment to removal. But will he be removed? The leader of his political party, the People's Power Party, is saying that he will do everything to unite the party, because the DPK and the allies, we need 8 additional votes. 200 is the majority to get him out of office. And the People's Power Party is saying they will come together to make sure that nobody leaves. However, presidential secretaries have left, the defense minister has left, other members working directly with President Yoon have left. But the question that I think is relevant to you is South Korea, the 13th largest economy in the world, still investable? Now, there are fears about the stocks and about the economy. The Kospi index went down 2%. The Kosdaq index went down 2.3%. Korea's stocks, South Korean stocks in the United States have been swinging widely. Now, South Korea is famous for auto exports and also semiconductor exports. And there's also a problem in that regard. But would the economy be affected? Well, people go back in history and they say that in 2017, when President Park Geun-hye was removed as a result of the crisis that occurred in the top women's college in Korea, in Seoul, the equity survived. Would that be the same case this time around? That remains to be seen, how this is resolved. Perhaps, if it's not removed from office, even if it's impeached, that will be able to save the South Korean economy. You are right. Cryptocurrency is doing very well. And finally, yesterday, Jerome Powell, addressing the issues about the possible independence of the Federal Reserve under President Trump, says he's not afraid because there are clauses in the enabling legislation that will make it very difficult for Trump to ride roughshod over the Federal Reserve. I like his confidence, but it remains to be seen when President Trump takes over. Thank you very much, Reuters.